Earlier today from my place in Brooklyn, I caught up via Skype with Baron Davis, former NBA player, long-term NBA player. Had an interesting conversation. Here it is. All right, as I mentioned, it's the two-time All-Star, the man behind WTF Baron Davis over on Fuse Network. Baron, thanks for making time, man.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
I'm really interested to talk to you about this transition to acting after we get through some of these NBA questions. But Anthony Davis topic is a really big topic. What was your first impression when you heard that AD is the latest star who wants to go somewhere else before his deal is up?
I'm not surprised. Um, it's just the nature of the NBA now. I think guys wanting to go and play with other superstars. So I wasn't really surprised, especially with someone like AD, who probably needs a lot more help, and it's difficult than being a superstar and trying to carry the load on a team like New Orleans.
You've been a pretty great player on a bad team before. Can you give us some insight on when you are at that level, what the frustration feels like as it builds up when you just know you're not going to win as many games or have the chance you want?
Well, I think it just becomes competitive because, all along you've been playing against the same dudes in high school. And when they have a competitive advantage, and their advantage is resulting in wins, and they get to go to the playoffs and have the opportunity to play in the finals, you're sitting watching. And you don't really have that much of a chance or a shot. So I think it becomes highly frustrating. Just having to cope, right? Just having to cope with losing and watching, people that may not be as good as you do well in the playoffs. And so I think for someone like him, it's really about getting his game and himself to the next level.
This has become the new normal. We saw Paul George decide he didn't want to be in Indy. We saw Kawhi Leonard decide he didn't want to be in San Antonio. And it leads, Baron, to these interesting situations in terms of how much leverage a team has to try to extract the proper amount. The latest report is the Lakers have offered Brandon Ingram, Kyle Kuzma, Lonzo Ball, Rondo, and 2 first-round picks for AD. What is the proper return for Anthony Davis if you're the Pelicans and you're frustrated and you want something back?
I don't know. I don't really know what's in the Pelicans' game plan. They're in a difficult situation because they got a player that don't want to be there, and they still need to put a good product out on the floor. So I think it's important that they stay patient and get what they feel that they can get in order for them to rebuild.
How great is AD? I mean, there's a lot of young superstars. Where does this guy rank for you on the list of, let's say, 5 years from now, being capable of being the best or second best guy on a championship team?
I mean, I think his talent is unmatched. I think that he plays well. His versatility is very unique in what he can do at 7 feet. I just think that he's one of the elite guys, and but just like a lot of them, they need help.
What do you make of the idea that players don't want to play with LeBron James, and that's a complicating factor for the Lakers? Is that a bunch of garbage, or is there something to that?
I think that's just, I don't know. That's just something you said. I don't know. I think that's, it's just rumors. You don't really know if those are facts or not.
We know what the Warriors are. We know what they've done. The East has a lot of good teams. Let's just say the Lakers and Magic Johnson land the guy they want. They get, in the next few days, Anthony Davis. What does an Anthony Davis and LeBron James team, minus a lot of those young guys, what's their upside this season? Is that a team that can make a run to a Western Conference Finals?
No. Nope. It's not going to happen. I think that, you're in a competitive Western Conference. I think if you do trade for Anthony Davis, you got to hurt Anthony Davis already, and you got to semi-hurt LeBron James. So, if I'm the Lakers, I want to make this trade and start putting the pieces together now, starting for next year's round.
Kobe Bryant said something really interesting in the last 24 hours, and I wanted to get your perspective on it. He said that what James Harden down in Houston is doing is impressive, but it can't and won't lead to championship basketball. What do you make of the notion that the usage rate for Harden, how much he has the ball in his hands, his remarkable numbers are not going to be capable of leading to an actual championship for the Rockets?
I think that one, when you pose a question like that, it's really like a headline question. When you look and see what Kobe Bryant said and why he said it and how he said it, it made all the sense in the world. And so I don't think that, I think the headlines are saying, oh, Kobe said James Harden can't win a championship like that, but nobody's paying attention to the details and why he said it. So I think that, a lot of times we look at the titles in the media and of course, as, analysts and people like that, I think it's important for us to run with titles. But when you actually listen to what Kobe was talking about, he was really praising James Harden for being able to accomplish something that is very hard to accomplish with it, with the position he plays, with the style of play that they play. And I think with that, what he was saying was it's going to be extremely difficult, and it's extremely difficult for any one person who has the ball the majority of the time to be extremely successful throughout the regular season and then in the playoffs.
Well, some of those details are that Harden's on track to have the ball in his hands the second most in the history of the NBA behind, I think it was Westbrook the year that he won the MVP, but that Thunder team didn't make it out of the first round of the playoffs. So if you're a Rockets fan and you obviously want to get at a minimum to where you were last year, which was knocking on the door of the finals, what is it that you need? Just health from your guys? Do you want, if you're Houston, to add some depth the next few days? How do you create a situation where Harden doesn't have to take the ball in his hands 41% of the time?
Well, if you look at it, Chris Paul has been out. They've been in this is a transition year for them. I don't care what anybody said. Losing Trevor Ariza, Bob Mute, you're losing glue guys on your team. So that's always tough to replace because you don't really understand the value of, a guy like a Trevor Ariza or a Bob Mute, but then also the value of Chris Paul and Chris Paul being hurt. Eric Gordon has been down this year. Capella's been out. So a lot of the responsibility has fallen on James' shoulder. And I think that, if anything, he stepped up to the challenge. For them to be successful, I'm not sure it's a trade. I'm not really sure what it is. I think that, when you're watching last year's Rocket team versus this year's Rocket team, they had a lot more weapons. And I think that, this year's Rocket team has a lot more injuries. And so hat off to James Harden for weathering the storm and shouldering the burden. And I think that, because he has the ball in his hands, what better person to trust out there than James if you don't have Chris Paul. But I think as guys start coming back and getting healthier, it's a chemistry thing with them. It's a ball movement thing with them. And I think that as the season progresses, you'll start seeing James kind of offload a little bit of that responsibility to Chris Paul and some of the other guys.
Baron, I'm always interested in guys who spend a lot of their lives, not their whole lives, but a lot of their lives, at least from the outside looking in, being defined by sports and what they do when they have the opportunity to retire younger than most of us. You went to acting, WTF Baron Davis on Fuse Network. You play a fictionalized version of yourself. Let's start with this. I'm so interested in it from my 4 years living in LA where everyone wants to be an actor. Why was that the thing that appealed to you at this stage in your life?
For me, I like making people laugh and having a good time. And, even when I played in the league, I was always, just like a funny person. Or, was always shooting viral videos when it started, just kind of fun things that I knew would translate. So for me, it was more so I love talking about basketball and being around the game, but at the same time, making film and TV and acting is something that I want to do with the next 50 years of my life.
What is the degree of difficulty for you as you begin your acting career compared to when you were trying to establish yourself as a longtime NBA player?
I think just being in the game to play. When you're playing basketball, you get invited to the camps, you get invited to showcase your skills, and so once you in, you in. and you can work your way up. I think the difficult thing about Hollywood is actually getting in the game, right? Everybody wants to be a friend. Everybody wants to do things, but you have to really, really prove yourself, and your chances come, kind of far and few in between. And so you just have to really just put your head down and do the work. And for somebody like myself, I have to be sharp because one thing can lead to the next if it's done well and I'm successful at doing it.
Well, Baron, congrats on that success and your new acting endeavor. We'll be watching on Fuse Network. Thanks for making time. Appreciate the insight, man.
Appreciate it, man. I'm glad this was able to work out.